This is it.
Ready?
This is it.
Yeah.
I have no opening question because I figured we'd be asking questions.
Lots of questions.
So, I have just sort of divided things up by location and figured we just go through by location. And then after that, we can delve into like characters. And I also have a list of like, you know, ideas that could have happened that were cut or things that got changed along the way, that kind of stuff. But yeah, hey, we finished another campaign. Cheers.
Huzzah!
Huzzah.
Huzzah.
My water.
I'll drink it with my skeleton hand cup.
Wonderful. Yeah, this was the third campaign that I DM'd to completion. But second in our little homebrew world. So, you know, thinking about the very first session 1, all of that pretty much played out the way I thought it would. There wasn't really anything that got cut or changed from that. That all pretty much happened the way I expected it to, which is bizarre. But no complaints here. But then the first place you guys went to was Flimwick. And y'all did most of the stuff in Flimwick. There was only one side quest that was skipped. And I believe we talked about it already. But it was a deadliest catch quest where y'all would have gone fishing with this like kooky old guy. And you would have helped him catch a sea monster in the bay. And I had come up with boat mechanics and homebrewed harpoons that would have been used in the encounter, and everything. But sadly, it was not meant to be. I wanted to give y'all options of side quests and let y'all choose which one you wanted to do. So, I'm glad I was able to give you choice. But, I don't even remember what the kooky old man's name was. I'm sure I have it written down somewhere, but it would have been funny. There's just like giant sharks or something. But the rest of that kind of panned out the way I thought it would. And then you went to Glad Isle. And so this is where the whole town was like sick, and some of the people in town were kind of like zombie-ish, and the cowardly mayor like told you that some people from the woods were attacking the town or whatever. So really the only thing that took me by surprise in Glad Isle was that y'all were way nicer and more forgiving to the mayor than I thought. Like, I mean, after everything, you find out that he's like, you know, made this deal with this like coven of hags, and he's like maybe trying to bring his wife back from the dead. And like it ends with Darren just having a little heart to heart, like, I understand, buddy, it's really hard to you know, go through these kinds of situations. It was not what I was expecting at all. Which was really funny.
We did steal from him and gave the money to the townspeople.
We did do that.
Yes. Yeah. I was expecting y'all to kill him, to be completely honest, but you didn't. Which was funny.
Darren
Last
to gentle
campaign,
parent.
I think we would have.
I can't remember. Were we trying very specifically not to kill people by that point?
Oh,
No,
Were
you
we?
weren't.
We didn't know
Yeah.
about
I think
that
that's
yet.
the point.
Oh,
I
that's
don't-
even weirder.
I think,
Yeah.
I do think Glad Isle is where you made that connection. But
It's after.
But it was after we'd killed some people there.
yeah, well, oh, maybe you did know. Maybe you
It was
did
the
know by then,
dock,
because you
right?
clocked that so fast. So maybe you did know.
Was Gladyle where Isla got recognized for the first time? Because I remember
At the very end of
I
Glad
remember
Isle.
her being like, I just knock him out or something.
And
Yeah.
I rolled like a nat one.
Well,
on-
he
Yeah.
tried to kill himself. He saw you and was like, no, it would be better if I
right.
just died.
Which is insane.
Remember, I did like a medicine check to save him
Yeah,
or
you
something
did.
crazy like that.
That was
yeah, I
what
think his
happened.
name was
Oh my God.
Thomas.
Yeah.
So
I forgot about
also,
that.
I did have, for Glad Isle, I had a plan if you had actually carried out the mayor's task of killing the Warriors of the Wood. And it would have ended up where, like, to thank y'all for completing that task, he would have invited you to dinner with him and his newly resurrected wife. And then you would have had to fight her plus the Hag Coven, like, at dinner. And it would have been this, like, whole thing. So that was the, like, other avenue of that. But yeah. Any other questions on Glad Isle?
Did
feel
the
like-
townsfolk get better?
So interesting.
Well, I think the thing with that is most of the townfolk were already dead. Like, they were walking around like zombies.
Yes.
And so the hags were, like, bringing them back, but they were actually dead. So, like, there still were, like, some living townsfolk left, but most of the town, like, got sick and died of whatever, like, disease, you know, hit that city. Or city's generous for Glad Isle, but you know what I mean. Town. Next, you went to Edgewater. Edgewater was, like, our first big city. So really the biggest missed opportunity, and one that I, like, kind of prepared for, but it never happened, is I thought y'all would go to Adrillis's penthouse in that city. Like, I thought when Darren met him, and by putting him in that town, it would have eventually led to y'all going to where he lived to, like, ask him further questions or get to know him and figure out what kind of person he was. I really thought that could have happened, and it just didn't. So if you had done that, you could have caught a very early glimpse of part of his ship collection. And I don't know if I had decided at the time if I would have put the assurance there or not, but there was definitely a possibility, however slight, and it probably would have ended up being, you know, up to a roll, but yeah, could have gotten an early taste.
Wow.
All the way back in Edgewater. Yeah, and I think at most, like, you would have realized that, like, oh, these ships in a bottle that he's collecting, they seem, like, magical, but maybe you, hopefully, I don't know. It's dangerous to put that there, so I'm kind of glad you didn't go there, because knowing you guys, you would have sussed that out, like, so quickly.
I'm trying to think of why we didn't. Was it because we were tangled with Mackenzie? No, that was later.
That was when all the Fortune Favored stuff was happening, right?
Yeah, I think you got a little sidetracked with helping out Fortune's Favored. But, I mean, you met him at the arena, and I think, honestly, at that point in the story, Darren wasn't ready to confront all of that yet.
Yes.
He was... I don't think he had really told the party, like, his backstory yet. It was just sort of something that, like, me and him knew. But he was still being pretty cagey about a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Right around then. Which is fine.
Oh.
But everything else we kind of did. There wasn't really much else to add there. I think the cherry on top for me was y'all being the people to ask Adrillis to hire Arthok. That was great. Y'all vouched for him, and that was wonderful.
Because didn't you tell me at some point that you were planning on having him kill whoever was hired and then take their place? Yeah.
Yeah, if y'all didn't put him forward as a suggestion, he would have slowly killed the competition until he was the only option to hire.
Oh
my
my
gosh.
Two birds, one stone. It would have helped with the death count, too.
It would have. So, like, y'all being so oblivious to his true nature kind of worked against him because he killed less people because of it.
That's very funny.
Which
Who'd
is
have
really,
thought?
I actually really enjoyed that, Artie.
which is really funny. It's it's so yo-ho-hos, like, coded.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should have bought this really nice person that's helped us out.
Yeah.
Is villain.
It's actually a 5-head play on our part.
Yeah. It's big brain, you know?
We got more time to get to know along the way.
It's the friends we made.
Yeah, it's friends we made along the way that later became our enemies. Okay, the next town I have written down is Glimcairn. Of course, in between that is when y'all met Allie and all of that stuff. So maybe I'll segue and talk about Allie just a little bit. Because this was his big reveal that he's not Bloody Jack and Isla actually is. Hang on, where do I have this written down? Surely. Okay, well, I guess the biggest thing, and this is really in the cut content area. Initially, Allie was gonna be a werewolf, which is really weird. But, like, literally, I had a whole character sheet for him to be a werewolf. It's like...
Yeah, I dig that.
He was gonna be a full blood hunter werewolf.
That would've
Werewolf
been
pirate is amazing.
Yeah, he's gonna be a sea dog.
I see.
Wow.
But,
Wait. Well, who would have given him lycanthropy, I guess? Like,
it ended up
rando?
being like kind of a whole dropped thing. I for some reason for a while there I really wanted werewolves in the mix, but I just felt like the more I worked on Allie/Isla's backstory stuff, the more I was like, that's too much to add in with everything else. Like,
no,
that's
that would've
crazy.
Next time.
Yeah. There's like a
Well,
whole
next
dropped
campaign.
werewolf plot line, and we'll get into that when we get to some of the other
Oh my god.
towns and stuff. But
That's crazy.
Drama.
yeah, that's the biggest change to Allie. Everything else was the same. Okay, Glimcairn, the town that never was.
Oh.
So Glimcairn wasn't fleshed out too much, but I did have some loose ideas. Theoretically, it was originally intended to be a location full of inventors, and you could have explored it more fully. And, like, there were very loose plans to introduce the idea of maybe a god or goddess abusing their powers and favor in order to help them invent new things that they maybe shouldn't have access to yet. This could have been, like, very nearly could have been the first tease of bringing back flying ships, and then we went a very different route. Also could have been, like, some potential opportunities for Revan to get more into tinkering. And, like, you always would have been able to go there and get the algae that Hoots needed. Of course, with the changes, Arthok took that away. But who knows if it would have worked or not, you know, it remains to be seen. But, you know, none of that really ended up happening. And I just felt like with Arthok no longer needing a reason to, like, play along and be the navigator, it just only seemed natural that he would switch and try to fast track his Cthulhu plans.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, he kind of got revealed before he had a chance to really, like, establish how dangerous he was. So Glimcairn kind of ended up being on the chopping block to, like, serve as an example for that. So, nothing super fleshed out there, but there were a lot of, like, potential ideas. Anyway, that's Glimcairn. Any questions about Glimcairn? Or all the people that died along the way? Because we lost a lot of people.
Every single person that resided in Glimcairn. No,
Yes, okay, so in alphabetical order, their names were Alan, Alice.
We actually wanted oldest to youngest.
Okay, all right. Amy? No.
Busy.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Because the next town is Alamthir. Is there anything in between the two? That was really just like Arthok getting captured and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of fast tracked that.
Yeah, because we were like, this man is a threat.
I know we lost some of Fortune's Favored because of that. And, I mean, again, it felt like I knew Arthok was the big bad. And if he got sidelined without any cost, it wouldn't...
Right.
He wouldn't feel like a threat.
Yeah.
And yeah, we took out an entire town. But you didn't know any of their names and weren't attached to them in any way.
Right.
Whereas, like,
Correct.
you know, Fortune's Favored, that hits a little harder. The Ouroboros, that hits a little harder.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why that happened. Alamthir. So I guess the biggest thing is I prepared a lot for the auction that didn't really, like, end up getting used. So I really, just because I didn't know how you wanted to go about the whole thing, I really didn't account for y'all swindling that old lady out of a bunch of gold. You know, she lost her dog, and instead of just taking the reward, you, like, convinced her to give you guys a much higher reward.
Uh-huh.
And so then you just had enough money to legitimately participate in the auction. I don't know why I didn't expect that to happen, but I didn't.
I think knowing that we had like quite a few, but especially like one main like face of the party, that like couldn't roll below a certain amount.
Right.
Kind of used that to our advantage
Yeah.
a little bit.
Well, and I just
Like,
threw in that lost dog thing as just a little like flavor side quest, you know? And lo and behold, it just ended up being like the thing you needed to totally handle this auction in the most legit way possible.
Yeah.
But I was prepared for a couple things. Like, I had a map of the whole location. So I was kind of prepared for potentially like a heist. You guys breaking into the vault where it was housed. You guys also could have tried to steal the items while they were being transported to the auction room. There was a period of time during the party when that happened, and y'all could have taken advantage of that and tried to steal them. I wondered if maybe you'd get into a bidding war with one of the other attendees, but instead you just sort of like talked them out of not bidding on the thing you needed. And then if you lost the auction, I was prepared for you guys potentially needing to steal it off of whoever got it. But y'all ended up just like being so legit about the whole thing.
That's for us.
Which was really funny. Really, really funny. Yeah. But yeah, I enjoyed the auction. It was a fun, especially after everything that had just happened with like Arthok and everything. Like, it was a nice little like, I don't know. It was more lighthearted, which was fun. And that's of course where we met Bim Balbona and Father Mackenzie.
Wow.
Two of our favorites.
Two of our
Yes, two of your absolute favorites. Another big thing about Alamthir is I initially never expected you guys to return to that city multiple times. It ended up being like one of your more visited places. I really initially thought it would be a one-stop location, but no. And then also, we met a lot of our silly crew for our ship that are all named after like fast food restaurants and stuff.
Yes.
And some of that was still just to kind of make things more lighthearted again after the Arthok twist.
Right.
But it was fun. And, you know, some of them actually had, like, I wrote down little, like, short backstories for each one, just in case. but it didn't end up really coming up. Also, Alamthir. So if characters died against Father Mackenzie and were not revived, that would have been the first time you woke up on the island in the cave, and John would have helped you leave. So I was prepared to do that as early as then, but it ended up not happening until way later.
Even if it was just the singular person that died, they would have been alone on the island.
Mm-hmm. And I was prepared to deal with a split party situation. I would have tried to fast track getting y'all off the island and back to the material plane, but like I was prepared for the party to be split.
I'm kind of sad that didn't happen, honestly.
It would have been really interesting, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Well, and we ended up splitting the party, but it was Isla with Father Mackenzie.
Yeah. Wasn't the way you planned.
No, it was not the way I planned.
Yeah, that was so funny because we were all like freaking out, crying, and you were like, "I have a plan."
I know.
And you were like, "We know," but
I was not used to everybody at the table crying, and so I was like, I was freaking out. I was like, I hope they trust me. It's gonna be okay. I was like,
we thought we
think
could
they're
die.
dead.
Then. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, that was crazy. Father Mackenzie will always be such a surprise. Like, he wasn't created to be a joke, but he wasn't created to be
what he was either.
Serious villain either, and he ended up just being like, I don't know, I thought he would just be an interesting person to meet at the auction, and then he just kept coming back up, and he turned into a bigger character.
I sort of love that though.
See if I want.
And of course, Alamthir was the tarot readings for the very
yes, and crazy. That like was just like this will be a fun thing to just add to this party, and then they just ended up being so scary accurate, that it freaked me out. And then I don't know, there's something there. I'm not sure.
You have a career is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, and then somewhere along the way in the prep for the final session, I was like, oh right, I should go revisit those future card readings and like try to bring them back up. Which I'm glad.
You said that you read for a couple other characters as well?
Yeah.
Shit, I did. You know what? When we
Arthok and Escher, I don't know.
It was Arthok and Escher. I have to go back and look at them. When we take a break, I will go find that and look it up, so that we can
very good
hear about that. I could talk about Father Mackenzie probably, but I think I want to wait and talk about him later. Possibly. Yeah, let's move on to Navalor, unless anybody has any questions. I'm trying to think of anything else that... So, Alamthir was also... We found out for sure Ronan's real name and her connection to Escher, which was so fun. Y'all talked to some Genasi in Alamthir and learned more about Orlana's stuff. I can't remember if y'all had already fought some water elementals before or not. I think maybe you had. I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
A lot happened in Alamthir.
Hoots talked to Death, which was really cool. That was something that like I'd never thought of before, and then MJ, you had that idea, which was awesome, and ended up being perfect because of y'all's, y'all didn't necessarily understand the nature of y'all's curse, and so getting to talk to her let me shed some light on that, and how sort of unusual that was, which was fun. Yeah, for sure. The next town you guys went to was Navalor. And the big thing about that was like the Feywild arc, where you all swapped bodies and all the weird stuff happened. So the Feywild could have gone a bit differently. I did come up with rules for how that crossing into the Feywild worked, like what allowed you to get into the Feywild and what would have allowed you to just go back to the material plane. And like theoretically, I gave you the answer, but in the vague Fey, I don't lie, but I kind of skirt the truth kind of way. So Podan gave you the answer to how to leave, but kind of disguised it. He said that you can try to leave the same way you came. So if you had left the cave and then entered it again in the exact same order you were lined up in, when you first entered, you would have exited the Feywild and returned to the material plane.
Wow.
Now, if you had done that, like, I still probably would have dropped you on the island. But you would have had all of your belongings and the earring wouldn't have been lost. So that would have changed the game a little bit. Because like, I mean, you would have been more prepared to deal with stuff on the island. There would be less tension with like the earring is missing, that kind of stuff. You like the same amount of time would have passed, and a lot of the same stuff probably would have happened, but the odds would have been a bit more in your favor, and it would be more of like Eleanor Rigby trying to find a way to get the earring off of you instead of just trying to find like the right time to leave and get back to Father Mackenzie, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
And so that would have been a bit different.
I actually have a question, because that was when Fortune's Favored was captured, and I think everyone else, basically.
Yes.
And so were they also, because the people that we had told about, we had sent them to like spy, and then they were captured. But I guess they were not spying, they were just minding their own
Adrillis
business.
just picked him up. You had told them to spy, but they were headed for Meldorai, and somewhere in a conversation, Adrillis also said that he was planning to go to Meldorai as well. And so that was like the one clue that linked him to their location. And I think I had also snuck into a conversation him commenting about how lovely he thought their ship looked. And so they were always a target for him. And I knew that y'all were going to be gone a long time. And so there were a couple other things, like I think I had him take the Duchess and had a bunch of other stuff happen. You know, if you're gone for a long time and there's really nobody there to save the day, Fortune's Favorite's gone, the Mythic Six is gone, the Yo-Ho-Hos are gone, then some things are going to happen and people aren't going to be there to stop it. So some of that felt like it needed to happen. And some of it is also a convoluted way of me getting y'all's like strong allies off the table so that you would have to deal with the stuff yourself.
I do have a question. What was the like potion, the drink we drank? Like, why did it kill us? What was
It's
it?
just like straight up poison. Like it's just gonna kill you.
We really said bottoms up.
Okay.
Wait.
No. You are not immune to poison, Revan. You are resistant. It is not the same thing.
But wouldn't I get like a roll to not die?
No.
Why would you just drink it straight like that?
Nah.
Because a lot of people are like, their drinks are poisoned, like they're already drinking something else that the poison is residing in. This is just
straight up some lethal fey.
100%.
I'm gonna kill you drink.
Yeah.
little Alice in Wonderland, drink me, but maybe don't.
Yeah. That was so cool though, because you got to like hint at Stray,
Yes.
which I don't think you probably would have otherwise.
Yeah, I decided to personalize them. So like I was glad you took the poison route because it was fun and I got to do the sort of flavorful personalized poison bottles and stuff, which was exciting. And in some ways, like Ronan was still pretty dodgy about about sharing details about the stuff she was dealing with. So y'all swapping bodies was a great opportunity to like shine some light on some of that stuff, so it couldn't be hidden as much anymore. Which was super fun.
To the person I really didn't want to find out, which was really fun.
Yeah. Oh, I had to swap you two. Like,
I was gonna say, did you just choose like, oh, it would be great if they swapped? Like how?
Yeah.
Okay.
I knew 1000% Ronan and Chi needed to swap.
Yes.
Everybody else was just, let me figure it out. To some effect, I thought about like who's more comfortable in what class, or who can handle more of a challenge with a class change than others. Like I feel like I tried to pick my who got stuck in a spellcaster body carefully, just because I know that can be overwhelming. But like, I mean, Casey's been a healer before. She's been a cleric before.
It's been a long time, but yep.
She can handle
That was
it.
your first character.
Yeah, and Claudia's big brain.
I appreciate that. Wow.
Claudia takes notes.
I don't know why you looked disbelieving at that.
Claudia's like one of the only people that takes notes.
Very smart.
I mean,
No, but
we're
I
very
didn't-
appreciative of her for that.
Yes.
But I only take notes now because I didn't the first campaign, and I like didn't remember anything, and I felt left out. And I was like, okay, well, now I need to.
They can be taught.
So, I had to learn.
And then I was really surprised nobody died against that giant tree monster.
Oh my god.
Yes.
That was crazy.
The initial plan was for that to be like an unwinnable fight, and I wouldn't even get to the poison. You would just all die in the fight.
Oh.
But you won the fight, and so like I had to come up with something else.
Because I remember, I think it was maybe me and somebody were talking about how, like, if one of us died, what happened, like, were they permanently stuck in that body? Like, how did that
Oh.
Yeah,
work?
well, it's another thing. None of y'all had really, truly died before, and so you would have woken up on the island, and we'd never gotten there. And I'm like, they have to die. Like, everybody has to die at some point in this campaign so they can learn about this. Like,
We're
I
gonna
just can't kill these
win
players.
the unwinnable fight and then voluntarily drink the poison.
yeah, it was crazy.
Amazing.
What was funny is, like, I never planned for the John fight to be necessarily unwinnable. Well, I never planned for that to be a TPK, and yet it ended up being one. It's just, man, you plan, and it doesn't matter.
That's crazy.
But the Feywild stuff was fun.
Oh yeah.
Podan was fun and crazy and weird. And yeah, I will tuck him away and bring him out for special occasions, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So the next thing, the next place you go that's new is Braylock. Of course, you learn more about, you know, Father Mackenzie along the way and Eleanor Rigby and all of that stuff. I'm trying to see if I wrote down anything for... So, Eleanor Rigby. I'll talk about her a little bit since she dies in between here and Braylock. So, she was originally meant to have, like, a different name. She wasn't meant to be Eleanor Rigby. Because her and Father Mackenzie were never meant to be a Beatles reference. That was never the intention. I just liked I don't know, I just liked the name Father Mackenzie, and I liked the idea of this, like, creepy priest Shar guy.
Mhm.
But, like, y'all kind of built her up as Eleanor Rigby in your heads, and
And you didn't want to disappoint. What?
Yeah.
well, and at first she wasn't gonna be an important character. She's just like the first mate on the ship, and she would maybe just only appear in that one fight against him the first time you fought him, you know, and then that was all it was ever gonna be. But like, she became a bigger character, and I realized that like I would need a way to try and get that earring from you guys while still keeping Father Mackenzie saved for like a later game battle. And so I knew she would end up being like the mini boss, and realistically there was just no way to logically get that earring from y'all unless I had a character take the time to spy on you and learn where it is. Otherwise it would be like too like meta, you know? So remembering the face that she keeps in a jar by the door lyric, I decided to add some flavor, and she became Eleanor Rigby.
Absolutely.
And yeah,
That was fun.
the rest
She was
is
born.
the rest is history. But
I still can't believe that about Vice. He was dead the whole time. Not the whole time, but
he so honestly, I killed Grimace because I got a little too trigger happy. Like, too much time had gone by without.
You out.
I know, too much time had gone by without like something crazy or spooky happening, or maybe I was just antsy. I forget what was happening in life, but so, you know, I had him kill Grimace, and then y'all just got so sus. But like realistically, Vice was gonna be the next one to go. Like, I don't think Vice would have even made it to Alamthir if I had my way. If it weren't for you meddling kids. But it happened. Vice lived much longer, and then I killed him when you were gone.
Yeah.
I still can't believe the whole situation with like looking for her with the compass like right at that moment either.
It was crazy. I hadn't thought of it. I had not thought of that at all.
That compass was OP for real.
It was way too OP.
Yeah, we'll talk about the compass later. Okay, next you go to Braylock. So, Braylock had a lot of skipped stuff because y'all teleported to the front of the church, which is fine because it meant you used it and then I didn't have to worry about it later, you know?
That's
We
true.
got it out of our system.
It's true.
Nothing is worse than people having the ability to teleport and then just sitting on it
Yeah.
Yep.
for months or years, and you're just like, when are they going to use that? I'm just over here sweating and having an anxiety attack. But and I've kind of already talked about it, but the subplot was that there was a resistance group that had formed after Mackenzie took over the town, and you could have met with them. You could have formed a strategy with them for taking down all the cultists throughout the city. There would have also been an opportunity to rescue the town guard, which had been imprisoned, and they could have also been added to your ranks when you took back Braylock. It was all meant to be a very, like, let's save Whitestone from the Briarwoods kind of situation, for those of us familiar with Critical Role. But, like, y'all just jumped to the final boss, so we just sort of nixed that. But I guess I can talk to some of the other cut Braylock stuff. So, again with the werewolves. Originally.
This makes sense though, because
Originally, werewolves would have also played a big part in Braylock. Instead of a big showdown with Mackenzie, you guys would have had to settle a dispute between two werewolf groups that both serve Selune, but were like fighting with each other. I even considered waiting to have Ali contract lycanthropy until here, instead of him starting with the ability. But this just, it all changed when focus shifted to Mackenzie, and it became clear that like he needed to be the big boss for the arc.
For sure.
I don't know why I was so into the werewolf idea, but like early
you
ideas.
really wanted Allie to be a werewolf.
I really did.
Did you reread their Twilight?
No, no. I don't know. But I also thought like, oh, Selune, like goddess of the moon, like maybe we have this group of werewolves that are devoted to Selune. Okay. Maybe we offer Chi the gift of lycanthropy. I don't know.
Oh my god, that'd be crazy.
It would have been weird, but cool, right?
But yes, but good aligned lycanthropes is a huge thing in like, the Selenian church, which we never really played into. But I'm like, that's fine.
But it's like legit a real thing, and like maybe it is still a thing happening in Braylock, but like,
that's so funny.
It just didn't get explored. Father Mackenzie stepped onto the scene and he stole the show, and
I mean,
he needed to be. He needed to be the focus. Mm-hmm. I think the tough thing with the werewolf idea is there wasn't a good way to start planting that plot line ahead of time. Like, I feel like the most rewarding arcs are the ones that you have been building up to for a long time. Mm-hmm. And if I'd stuck with the werewolf idea, it would have been something like, we didn't know about it until we got there. And then we dealt with it, and then it's done. Yeah. Whereas, like, Mackenzie was, like, an ongoing threat that, like, you got to know him, and that made that more impactful, you know?
I agree, for sure. No, I mean, that was... And Mackenzie's just so, like, menacing. Like, it's...
Yeah.
It's so... and I think, I mean, I think we probably talked about this before, but, like... Many of us are very familiar with evangelicalism and like with like the different figures they're in, and like how even if we haven't run into personally with anybody that was bad news, I mean, it was heard of, you know? So it's like, I think that especially is why Mackenzie was so...
Yeah, there's something real about him in like a really uncomfortable way. Like, I can't speak to everybody, but I would say probably like 99% of women are familiar with some sort of like male authoritative figure that is kind of like Mackenzie in some way. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what makes him such a strong villain.
Well, that's like Joe and I were listening to Hunchback a little bit on one of our drives this weekend, and I was like, Frollo is such a scary villain because he's such a real villain.
Yeah.
Like, he is someone. He's not someone who turns into a dragon. He's like a real person, and that's what's scary about him.
Yes.
Same with Mackenzie.
For sure.
Precisely. Yeah.
For sure.
So of course he stole the show.
I'm glad he turned out the way he did. Like,
Me
I don't know. I mean, he was gross to play as, but he was also fun, you know, in its own way. We seldom get to experience characters that just feel so evil, like in that way.
It's true.
It's very different from like Arthok. Arthok, it's like an unreal level of like evil. You know, that's like serial killer territory. And Father Mackenzie was very different. And he like legitimately, like he thought he had all the information. He just didn't. Like, he legitimately thought that Isla had that piece of the earring in her. Like, he just was operating on false information. So I think he always like, I'm not sure if that like ritual that he was trying to perform, I don't think there was ever an opportunity for that to actually succeed. Even if like, I don't know, more of that fight went his way. It's just like, I think if he had gotten both, I'm sure I have it written down somewhere, but if he had gotten the earring, like before you had destroyed it, if you had shown up to the fight with it, and he had gotten a hold of it, it would have just been too much for him. I think it would have destroyed him. And perhaps it would have had a catastrophic, like, you know, ripple effect or something. But I don't think he could have ever been truly successful. I mean, he probably would have always died. Maybe Shar would have gotten it or benefited from it in some way. But, I mean, once y'all destroyed that, I was like, well, now I don't have to worry about figuring out what that was going to be. Because I don't know. But yeah, and he had such a... I mean, y'all threw him out a window. It was great.
Sure did.
That was, yep.
Oh, somewhere along the way we met the butcher.
Yeah.
Yeah, y'all met her on the way to Braylock.
Okay, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, she's just like straight up evil. I think we know that, but she like totally is. Because she's modeled after, for the Star Wars nerds out there, she's modeled after HK-47, which is a character from the Knights of the Old Republic Star Wars game. And he's an assassin droid, and he calls people meat sacks and enjoys killing them.
Oh.
I mean, you can use him for good, but, I mean, he's designed to kill.
Yeah.
So that's what she's based off of. But, I kind of was stressing there for a little bit when y'all fought her, because I thought you were going to destroy the ship before she got to reveal herself.
Yeah, isn't it crazy how we only knew that when they teleported?
Yeah, and then you guys teleported. I was about to have her walk out on the main deck because I was like, this is not going well for her. It wasn't going well for y'all either. Your helm got destroyed in that fight, if you remember.
Yeah.
Which meant y'all couldn't steer. But then y'all teleported, and thank God Darren took Revan with him.
Yeah.
Because, like, if that had happened any other way, that would have been really hard to, like, roleplay our way through. So that honestly just ended up being, like, perfect.
That was
very cinematic.
Mm.
And then sort of played for laughs, like, oh, you're that guy I know. Oh, we can stop fighting. This is fine.
Yeah, I feel like it would have been really hard to explain suicide bombing their ship as friends.
Yeah.
Because that was I can't remember exactly what we were planning.
Going in and like blowing up the ship.
We were gonna like,
it was
I
suicide
think you wanted to
bomb,
blow
for
it
sure.
up and then leave immediately.
yeah, we were gonna teleport out.
You were gonna hope that you could teleport out in time.
Yeah.
I don't think that's how that works, though.
Forgot that was the plan.
Because, like, Dimension Door is an action,
Right.
but so's
Well,
blowing up.
Okay, well, we just prepare the action of blowing up, and then when we dimension door.
I don't think that's how it works, Joe.
I don't think it would have worked out.
We set a fuse.
Now, fortunately, you guys had already taken the cape. You didn't realize
Yes.
how important it was.
True.
When
Oh my
you
God.
take that cape, I think, all things considered, my poker face is pretty good. When you go back and watch the moment when I'm like, oh, you take the cape? Okay.
Huge.
I wasn't calling it a cape. I was afraid to call it that, I think.
You know what?
yeah.
You called it like a tapestry.
Yeah.
Joe's about to pull it up. What episode was it?
Oh God. It's literally I think it's right after What You Fay. But it
I feel like we really did put your poker face to the test this campaign.
there's been multiple times where I'm like, good job, me. You really did okay.
and
Because
there's somewhere I watch back and I'm like, "Oop."
What you say?
It's like-
so funny.
I think it's while you were sleeping, maybe.
It would have been in like the 50s.
I think it's while you were sleeping.
49. That was really close. Easy.
Well, so it's not pick your poison.
No. Pick your poison. Pick your poison ends with you waking up on the island.
Okay. So
And then we took a break. And Yeah, because I think Pick Your Poison ends, and I'm like, now we're in the third act of the story, and it freaked y'all out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out what these notes were in between. That's definitely a Star Trek one-shot. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, it's while you were sleeping, but yeah, you just like
sort of basic
random.
armor or
Oh,
weapons.
we're
or,
listening to it.
Spell components and things. You can get that, but no +1, no magic stuff. All of that is gone.
What?
Right. Yeah.
Y'all should
Nothing.
mute that.
Oh,
Turn
you're
on
fine.
closed captions or something.
I was like, I thought you were saying exactly what.
Oh, it's
Quote for quote.
I'm so good at remembering everything that happens every
You
single
just knew
session.
every detail of the whole campaign.
God, that was so.
But
funny.
I mean, this is so
you just
scary.
randomly took that cape though.
I just,
Oh,
I think I was the one that grabbed it. I was
You
like,
were.
You were.
I
yes.
was like, oh, tapestry. Maybe there's like important information sewn in, because you described it as a tapestry, not a cape, right?
Yes.
Right.
Maybe there's like important history sewn into this, or something that we can get some information.
Oh.
It
Yeah.
was such an off the wall decision from my standpoint. And I remember like when that session ended, I went down to Sarah and I was like, they took the cape. And she was just like our jaws were on the floor because we knew that meant if for some reason Arthok decided to die,
He was
allow
showing
himself
all
to
that shit.
die, he would show up where you were.
Oh.
And so that ended up being like the first strategy. But that changed and I ended up not doing that. But like, because eventually y'all realized that could happen as well. But
Yeah.
yeah.
But we didn't think about that immediately. Well, we didn't know what it was.
No, you didn't
Wow.
realize why you woke up where you did.
Mhm.
I
It
only
took-
had quite a few decisions like that.
It took
Just-
until the John fight for you to figure that out. But yeah, that was crazy. We
Yeah,
got off-
Isla made a number of like really split seconds.
Yes!
really
Like,
crazy
important-
decisions.
Yes!
Important calls.
Yes. To drag us back on track, the next place you went was Hangman's Alley.
Oh.
So the very early plan for Hangman's Alley, Blythe was the betrayer in Arthok's crew, and originally he was going to be there as well. So if Arthok was still in the party, he would have tried to kill Blythe, Ava, and Brash. He would have tried to kill any of his remaining crew that were there. So way back when, like the real plan for Arthok, like if y'all were sus about the Grimace stuff, but gave me time to explain, he would have relented that he was the Cloud King, and he would have offered you up that truth, and he would have spun some lie that Grimace either was somehow connected to his old crew, or knew about his old crew, or was a part of it, and that would have been the explainer for why he killed Grimace, and he would have just been like, they betrayed me, I'm on a revenge path, like, I'm sorry I lied to you. And he would have offered you up that truth, hoping that would be enough to appease you.
Oh my god.
And then his goal would have been trying to get to Hangman's Alley to find the people that mutinied.
Oh.
All along the way, killing whoever he could to take up that counter.
I can't even imagine him making that far. That's so crazy.
I know.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's a world in which, like, because that is a truth, and that's like, you know, when you tell part of the truth, you accept it, you know? I feel like there's a world in which maybe that could have worked, but the second you guys were like, take your shirt off, I knew it was over for me, and that wasn't going to work out.
I know,
but-
Benji really snipes this shit, because, like,
Oh my god.
I think we were all suspicious. We were like, okay,
It felt
but he was like, take your shirt off.
crazy.
We were like, what?
I know I'm so, like, in hindsight, there's so much I could have done to make Arthok look less suspicious. Like, I mean, he's got, like, thaumaturgy. I could have made sounds happen from within the ship and made you think that the monster was still on the ship. And I was so taken off guard with, like, Darren and how y'all were reacting to Arthok in the moment that it just all left my head.
Oh, I mean, yeah.
Which,
but anyway,
fair.
We would not have done probably any better in your shoes. And
no.
Whatever you expected or wanted to do, you can say for the next big bad.
For sure. Well, and I think it ended up, I think it all worked out for the best, you know?
Oh,
got, because y'all weren't expecting the Cloud King.
No.
At all. And so I still got the satisfaction of that twist, which was fun. But originally, Hangman's Alley was meant to be more serious, you know? It would have been tied to Isla, but it also potentially could have offered up a way to explore Arthok's backstory while he was still with you as a crew member. Which, realistically, he probably never would have made it that far. That was, like, really early plans.
I see.
But all of that changed because John had just killed y'all on the island. And because all of that had happened, something really dark and terrible had just happened in the campaign, which meant we needed levity. So Hangman's Alley ended up shifting to be largely comedic in a lot of ways, but I feel like it was a lot of really fun role play moments, like for Isla, but for the whole crew as well. And also, if Gallows had somehow beat Isla in the final games, he would have still declared Jack dead and would cite Isla losing as further proof that she wasn't the person she used to be.
Ouch.
Should we talk about Gallows?
Yes, what is he?
So, Gallows was always meant to be a parallel for Isla, and kind of a representation of what Arthok could have been under different circumstances. So he's a man that was once a fearsome pirate, probably not a very good person. He eventually found that his luck ran out, and he was confronted with the consequences of his actions. And he was allegedly put on trial for his crimes, found guilty, and sentenced to death by hanging. But for some mysterious magical reason, he came back to life. The noose he wears around the neck is the noose that was used to kill him.
And so, Hangman's Alley, what?
Hangman's Alley. So unlike Arthok, he let go of his past. Like, once he came back to life, he's like, this is a second chance. He moved forward. He created Hangman's Alley as a means of paying it forward to people that were dealing with the same stuff that he went through. He doesn't even really, I know he sailed to help y'all in the final, like, fight for all the different cities, but up until then, he had stopped sailing and he used his ship to create the Devil's Dregs and kind of never looked back. Now I'm about to drop a really big bomb on you guys. So, Gallows is actually Allie's dad.
What?
Yes, but Allie doesn't know.
Oh. Wait, so
how will we find that out?
Is that why Gallows likes Allie?
That's why Gallows likes Allie.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and that's why he's particularly sympathetic and knowledgeable about the whole Bloody Jack thing. Like, he makes it his business to, like, keep tabs on Allie and makes sure that he's okay and that he's happy. And so that's why he was so forgiving and kind about that whole thing. And, like, there really wasn't a way to figure that out. Like, Allie didn't know, but Allie did mention, like, yeah, Gallows has always been really nice to me. He's cool with me. Like, Gallows gave me the compass, you know, all of that stuff. So
I forgot about that.
It was a throwaway comment. And I know Bigler made a face when I said it, but it was a throwaway comment towards the end. But yeah, so the compass was originally Gallows. And
god.
This is not super fleshed out, but it was gifted to him by some god or goddess. I haven't really committed to deciding who gave
Sure.
it to him.
Mm-hmm.
But he used it to find Hangman's Alley a safe place for pirates or people like him to kind of hide out.
It could be that the werewolf goddess that is
That's
Allie's mother.
Salune.
Salune.
I mean, that would make sense because she's also navigation.
She
but
is also navigation.
There's a lot of Salune.
I've thought of Tamora because she's luck.
Yeah.
And, you know, getting a second chance of life, you know,
Yeah.
luck changing, I'm not sure. I don't know. I haven't thought that far out, but some deity took an interest in him and kind of changed his whole life around. But he's basically built off of, it's a variant of human. You can have the lineages. It's introduced in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft.
Oh.
He's a reborn.
Oh,
So
yeah. Oh, okay.
yeah. If you're familiar with Critical Role Campaign 3, Marisha's character,
Laudna.
Laudna, she's a reborn. She died, but was brought back. So Gallows is effectively that. So he's really not immortal. Like, you guys are like, he can't die. It's like, totally can. But he just, the only thing is he's already died once.
Right.
Oh, that's so
But
funny.
he's sort of undead.
I see. I mean,
Been there, done
Gotcha.
that.
Yeah, been there, done that. And so that's why
cool.
he's not super impressed with Isla. Like, I was dead once. Like, because in his mind he's like it's
same.
hard.
I mean,
like,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But that's the deal with Gallows.
Oh my god.
Interesting. Oh my god.
That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Allie ever finds out?
Maybe. I think maybe one day.
I guess you'll have to watch campaign 3.
Yeah, maybe it will.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah, but it was something I decided, but I knew it probably wouldn't come up, but I just like it. I don't really know who his mom is, but I don't think it really matters.
Does his dad know who his mom is?
I
I could
probably.
assume so.
Probably so. Probably whoever was pregnant.
No, a stork brought Allie one day.
That is how babies come into the world.
Yeah. I guess while we're in the Hangman's Alley section, I can talk a little bit to Isla's backstory. So,
Oh yeah.
Isla, your backstory changed a lot as the story progressed. You were always Bloody Jack, and Allie always would have shown up, but all of the Father Mackenzie stuff kind of got added in later. He did not exist when the campaign started.
Which is crazy to me.
Yeah. So originally, I wanted the power of the earring to be inside you, but as I toyed with the idea further and kind of fleshed out what the earrings were and how they worked, I kind of nixed that. And also, it's like, I didn't necessarily want to... It's tricky having something that tampers with your ability to make decisions as a character, you know? And the earrings kind of do that. So in a way, it was better when Allie got them because I can show better how that affects him without affecting your ability to make your own decisions and choose the path you want to choose as a character.
Right.
Yeah, you know, Father Mackenzie got created and everything changed. Everything changed when Father Mackenzie attacked.
Yeah, it did.
We already talked about the werewolf stuff. I guess the next bit is Croftberg, which is Barovia.
Oh yeah.
So let's talk about that. So you deal with Hangman's Alley. Any questions about Hangman's Alley?
I think so.
No. You kind of talked to all of them and met all of the pirates. R.I.P. One-Eyed Wanda.
Yeah.
What a noble sacrifice.
Truly.
It's funny that she's the one that died and she's the one that like hated you the most, like when you arrived at Hangman's Alley. But y'all kind of like patched it up, so it's like she came the furthest in terms of character development and then died.
Yeah.
So sad.
Rough.
R.I.P. Okay, Croftberg, Barovia. So most of this panned out the way I intended it to. Like, yeah, y'all skipped some encounters in the funhouse, but like, I don't think any lore was really missed. All the Barovia lore drops that I snuck in there were just sort of my way of showing that that world kept on and time kept passing since we played through Curse of Strahd. And it was also sort of my way of setting things up for like maybe a potential like mini campaign one day. I would love to do like a mini little like Return to Barovia and stuff, but I don't know when that would happen, but maybe one day. That was kind of the extent of that. But we can talk a little bit about Ronan and Vendrig. So, the Shadow. The Shadow was always meant to be the one that Ash let out of the funhouse. And like Casey can attest to that, because I feel like I dropped that. Well, did I tell you what the Shadow was?
No, but I did make the choice.
Yes, to be connected.
To be connected to that one shot. So it makes sense that was.
Yes. So I was like,
wouldn't it be cool if like I was someone that wouldn't be here if like the Mythic Six hadn't done X, Y,
right. Which I loved, which was so fun to explore. But the specifics on like what/who the Shadow was, kind of like, I didn't have a clear idea of what it was when we started the campaign, and so that kind of like morphed and came into being as we played through the story. And eventually I landed on it having a connection to Shar. I clocked the tension between Chi and Ronan, and I just liked the idea of furthering that and making that more complicated. It's like Chi is this like Selûne cleric, and it's like, how perfect would it be if the thing attached to Ronan is Shar, which is like the antithesis of Selûne. So that's why it ended up being connected to Shar. The identity of Ronan's dad wasn't entirely set in stone until like a good chunk of the way through the campaign. I really liked the idea of him being one of the other kids, but I didn't land on who it was until maybe while y'all were in the Feywild. And then at one point I even toyed with the idea of your shadow somehow being your dad, but I couldn't quite get like a timeline that made sense to me for that to work. So
my immediate thought went to Gorgug in Dimension 20.
Yes. Oh my god, are you my dad? Are you my freaking dad? And then I also just became really attached to the idea of you having a surviving family member that was actually a good, reliable person. Because like I feel like you were so set up to be this like loner kind of character. So, and you were maybe expecting the deadbeat dad, if there was a dad, to sort of throw you the like caring father that's like been trying to help you this whole time. I was like, that's what we need. We need that instead.
I was fully like, if we ever find this guy, I'm gonna have to like go off on him, and it's gonna be great.
Right, and instead he's like a totally lovely person that's like really sorry about everything and feels super guilty and is trying to help. Yeah, it just felt like the right way, like giving you because Ronan is so isolated and secretive as a character, giving her a loving and concerned parent felt like the right way to give her character that final nudge on her arc. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just felt like the right choice there. Any other questions about Barovia? Or Vindrick? Cool. Why don't we take a short little break so I can get another drink and then we'll come back. But let's continue on. First, Pelamari. Pelamari was the next place you guys went to. I always kind of suspected that Pelamari would be the last city. And I hoped that Adrillis could be saved until here to be, like, his confrontation. I knew that there was a possibility that he could be revealed as a villain sooner, but I figured you wouldn't be able to fight him until here. There really wasn't much skipped or cut content here, because, like, I don't know, there just comes a point where I feel like the party kind of locks in and figures out exactly what they need to do. Like, the closer you get to the end of a campaign, the less, like, not decision-making happens, but you know what I mean. Like, it becomes more linear as you get to the end, and it's a little less amorphous. Like, where do we want to go next? Who do we want to talk to next? It's like, okay, we have to do these things, you know? So I guess the biggest thing for Pelamari was trying to figure out how to get you guys to deal with the academy. You did not want to deal with that, like, at all. Joe was like, I don't want to touch my backstory with a 10-foot pole. And that decision affected how things panned out. So I definitely, not that it really mattered because you guys were super overpowered, but I definitely increased the number of enemies at the academy because you decided to put off checking it out instead of going straight there. So that gave them time to shore up their defenses a little bit more. I also had plans for how to entice you guys to go there if you continued to avoid it. Like, if y'all continued to avoid going there, I had it all mapped out, and I was kind of hoping it would come to this, but it didn't. Y'all would have heard a rumor of another Warforged being spotted in the town, matching Pierce's description, and they would have left you, like, a cryptic message that's like, they're watching me, I can't talk, like, meet me in this location or something. And you could have met Pierce in, like, a tavern in a back room, but it was Kreia in disguise as Pierce. And she would have been pretending that she had just escaped the academy and would have been trying to lure you away. And she would have sprung a teleportation trap on you guys, and it would have sent you straight to the cells in the basement of the academy.
Wow.
And you would have started investing in the academy from there. That was only if you continued. I was like, okay, if the arm doesn't work, we go to this. We go to DEFCON 4. But fortunately, the being mailed a severed arm worked.
It was persuasive.
Yes. Well, and that was tricky too, because, like, if she had shown up as Pierce, like, I would not have described Pierce as having 4 arms. I would have described him as having 2. And so for all of us that were familiar with him from the last campaign, that would have been a really hard thing for y'all to metagame around, you know, or not metagame around, because you guys know that Pierce has 4 arms, but, like, in all of Revan's memories of Pierce, he only has 2. So that's, like, the thing there. So I feel like if we were watching the campaign as a movie and like this was season 2 of Misfit Adventures, the audience would have seen that severed arm and been like, that's not Pierce. Like, that's Pierce, like, at the beginning of season 1, but that's not the Pierce that we came to know as the campaign progressed. But, like, y'all don't know Pierce. Like, y'all never met him in person, so I had to be really careful about that. Yeah, but, I mean, most of that kind of... I guess we can talk to Kreia a little bit and talk about her some. So, Kreia changed a bit, and I think some of y'all clocked what she could have been. I think maybe Claudia clocked what she could have been. So, like, originally before the campaign even started, like, the initial idea was that Kreia would secretly be Fae Dark. That had somehow survived. Like, she had some other clone stashed away. And it was just Fae Dark trying to be Fae Dark again. But the more I thought about it, the more I really wanted Joe to have his own villain that wasn't, like, tied to some campaign he wasn't in. So, now, Kreia definitely was interested in Fae Dark and all of the stuff that she was into, but she was her own person. And so it was more of you know, some nods to Star Wars, but less like, I don't know, some fan service insert from the last campaign. There were still like plenty of tie-ins to the Jade Enclave and stuff, but Kreia herself was only loosely based on the Star Wars character of the same name. Now, Benji kind of hit the nail on the head a while back. So Kreia is in it for herself. Y'all thought that she was involved in the curse somehow at one point. Y'all tossed that idea around. But she honestly couldn't care less about any of that. She was not interested in, like, whatever weird thing Arthok was up to. Like, she had a passing curiosity for the Far Realm, but she was way more interested in the research notes and the Amulet of Planes. Like, that's really all she was after. She didn't know that Revan would be pulled into that curse. And she was kind of, like, low-key pissed that happened. But she didn't really have the best means of tracking down Arthok to punish him for that. And so by the time she knew where Arthok was, he was already imprisoned. But yeah, she really was just interested, like, I mean, she loves research and acquiring knowledge, and she was certainly interested in Warforged, and so getting those notes from Arthok that belonged to Fae Dark was really important to her. And then the Amulet of Planes was just, it's another useful way of getting places where there are just crazy magical things happening. That was an interest to her, but she could care less about, like, Cthulhu coming to destroy the world. She was not, I mean, I feel like on some level she's like, Arthok's crazy. He's just some crazy cult fanatic, and I'm not into that. Yeah. Nihilus didn't end up being much of anything, but he was kind of meant to be, like, eviler Revan.
That's right.
But, like, he lacked a soul, so, like, really he was just kind of like the empty puppet, you know? She would have if you continued to be not compliant, she just would have taken your core and stuck it in him. And who knows if that would have even worked. Like, if you probably just would have woken up in Nihilus's body and then just been like, okay, I'm still gonna do whatever I want, you know? But yeah. Anything else about the Academy or Kreia?
I feel like I just would have been, like, pissed off if that were Fae Dark again. Because, like, that was such a fight in the last campaign. Like, it was crazy. And then she like almost killed Casimir, and it was like this whole thing. And yeah, so I'm glad that she was her, and for Joe's sake, I'm glad it was original.
Yeah.
But it was very, reminiscent.
The Academy also had a lot of it has the most like nods to the next campaign in it.
Oh.
So
Like that white circle shit. That white circle shit. I can't tell you about it.
Yeah, that
Oh,
like
that's
never
right, because
got
we didn't know what that
answered.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yo, I was really wondering what that like white circle was in the academy.
Man, you'll just have to play the next campaign and see if it comes up.
I'm scared.
Yeah. But that
Fascinating.
was the Academy. I was not expecting you guys to get the local law enforcement involved, but that was fun. Y'all had them
Anytime
like go
you can
clear
bribe
out.
people. I mean,
Well, y'all kind of like. I mean, I think at some point I just wanted you to do that because you kind of went down and did like the important boss stuff first, and then you were like, should we go upstairs? I'm like, there's nothing upstairs left, really. I mean, it's all just gonna be small potatoes compared to what was downstairs. And then y'all decided to go just have like the cops deal with it. I was like, oh, thank God. Because it would have been really like anticlimactic. You know, you go deal with the big boss first, and then you deal with the like starting area. It's like out of order, you know? But yeah, you found out all this stuff about it without us having to deal with the fighting, which was fun. Which was nice. You know what? I'm gonna cross that stuff off. We've talked about Kreia. She is done. Okay. So, Adrillis. So, that was the next thing that y'all dealt with. So, for Adrillis, the rooms that got skipped in his big fancy house were a dining room. The dining room was trapped to, when y'all entered, the cutlery would have turned into, like, a cloud of daggers, if we're going off of the spell. That effect, basically. And so you would have had to find a way out of that while dealing with the flying cutlery cutting you up. You skipped a closet where all the clothing would have, like, continued to expand and try to smother you. Think Bellatrix's vault. You skipped an enchanted music room where all the instruments would have come to life to attack you. You skipped the bedroom full of succubi, lol. They ended up joining the fight. Y'all dealt with the genie pretty quickly, so I was like, we'll just have them join and even things out. You skipped the actual vault. Of course, you went to the mimic one, and that's fine. And then I had plans for not destroying the bottles, and then also plans for if all of you had been killed by the bottles. So, you know, I was prepared for either outcome. I also accounted for having, like, I also accounted for if you didn't save your friends in bottles that you saw on the shelves, and they ended up being in bottles that got destroyed. Like, I went through all of your allies and, like, tried to give them spells to help mitigate the damage if they got caught up in it. Like, because Fortune's Favored, I stopped leveling them up when they got taken off of the like, playing field, you know? But then when I knew that they were going to come back up again and were potentially going to be in a really deadly situation, I realized that they were super underleveled to handle that. So I leveled them up a little bit and tried to prepare them with stuff that would help them survive, you know, should they get caught up in that. And let's talk about the bottles. So in my original plans, the magic bottles were something that Adrillis had the genie craft. So he had imprisoned that genie and used that to craft the bottles. So it was defeating the genie that ended the loop, not Adrillis. And I think Escher said, like, when y'all let him out, he's like, yeah, I just suddenly remember being on a shelf and being really small, and then one of you stuck me in your bag or something. So, like, everybody trapped in a bottle came to realize they were in a bottle before Adrillis had died and before all the bottles broke.
Okay.
Yes. So that's how that worked. We should probably just talk about Adrillis outright, shouldn't we?
You mean Tash Moran?
Tash Moran. Yes. Okay, so, I mean, he was probably the biggest gamble, I feel like. Maybe not the biggest. I mean, Arthok was a big gamble, but Adrillis was the gamble that paid off. I mean, obviously I wanted him to be a late game encounter, but I wanted him introduced early on. I tried to sow seeds of his questionable behavior and morals early on. And I think you caught on to a lot of it, but like he was funny and silly, so we kind of disregarded a lot of that. But yeah, y'all guys were really suspicious of him at first, and it led me to play up his humor more to kind of get you guys to let your guards down with him a little bit more.
Note taken.
Yeah. When in doubt. No, I think he literally made, I'm pretty sure he made a boob joke, and you all were just like, he's cool now. Which was funny. So there were a few other clues to his like identity and obsession with ships. He was very eager to become a partner in owning the museum with Mortimer, and that was because he wanted Harpy's Bane. He tried to use Mortimer's bankruptcy to goad him into giving him partial ownership of the museum, but you guys stopped him by raising funds for the museum. And then he later used like the need for y'all needing to trap Arthok to like achieve that goal. So like Mortimer needed a way to contain Arthok, and Drillis was like, I have this, make me a partner. And so he got his way in that way. Now a Drillis gifting fortunes favored the magic bottle to contain Arthok. That was a nod to him having the ability to bottle ships. Of course, the magic word is his real name. I was really worried that y'all would be really suspicious of that. And y'all did ask him about it. But I think I made a joke and y'all let it slide. Like, I made a joke about him using it so that he can, like, store giant gold statues in his penthouse or something to get around the HOA, and y'all were like...
We like a good joke.
Y'all were cool with it.
We like
all funny characters next campaign.
Right?
Our suspect.
Well, I don't know if we'd had a villain be the funny guy.
No.
You know?
Not
charismatic,
really.
funny guy. But yeah, I mean, if y'all had explored, I think in his bedroom I put a tiger rug in his bedroom, which may or may not be like one of his relatives, who knows?
That's nuts.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else with him. I mean, he's really just like, the thing with him is Adrillis isn't like, he's evil, but like he's not human, so I don't. And he's, like, essentially immortal, so I don't think he really knows the value of human life. So, like, to him, it's just, like, a pretty thing, you know? Whereas, like, to somebody else, it's like, that's my whole family that you've just put on your shelf. And he's like, but isn't that little ship darling to look at? You know? Like, it just doesn't register for him. Yeah. I don't know. For me... Tash Moran is just sort of like the embodiment of like greed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know. But y'all dealt with him well. He ended up being a fun, like, I like the way his stuff panned out. It was fun.
And speaking of relatives, he had that like letter from
Indusa.
Which I don't really know what to make of, TBH, right now. So.
Unfortunately, I can't talk about that.
I know.
I
figured
I
you wouldn't be able
wonder
to.
why.
It's crazy, but you'll just have to play in the next game, I guess.
Oh darn! You know, I was thinking about.
Oh darn!
Man. But yeah. Also, realistically, Joe, I think that dragon probably would burst out at some point.
I forgot about the dragon.
I think
Okay.
I think he
smart
probably
enough.
would.
I just feel bad because I straight up, in the heat of the moment of the final battle, forgot about it. And then I think if you go back and watch it, there'll be a moment where you see my eyes light up. And it's when I thought about it, but it was too late. And it was just like nowhere to throw it out.
The thing is, I had already decided that if you waited until the final fight to release a dragon, it would have been so pissed about being stuck in a bottle up until then, it would have just left. Like, it would have just gotten out of there.
I threw it at Arthok, and it was like tangled with this thing.
I think it would give you the middle finger and fly away.
Well,
Now, I mean, it'd be in the far realm, so who knows what would... I mean, I'm sure some John lookalike would just eat it later, but I don't know. Who knows?
Maybe Revan spends the next 2 years trying to figure out how to charm an adult bronze dragon.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
I don't even know if you can charm a dragon.
I don't know.
I'd have to look at the stats. You probably can a younger one. I don't know about an adult one. Dragons are pretty powerful. Before we get into some of the other stuff, let's talk about the island just a little bit. So, interestingly enough, I don't have like a ton of stuff to say about the island. So, it was kind of... I never really had a firm idea of what it was. Like, I kind of just developed it as you guys visited it, and it just sort of, became whatever you needed, at the time, or whatever we needed to go through or discover, or whatever arc we were working through. But at the same time, it was sort of the start of everything. Like,
Yeah.
It's like where the campaign starts, but it was also like one of the last places that got fleshed out, which is interesting. I never really had the whole island mapped out until the last time you visited, really. It was sort of constantly changing and evolving depending on like your decisions and what you needed to uncover. But there were some things that were always true. Cthulhu was always there. He was always under the island, and Arthok's ship was also always there. I just didn't really land on like the location of it until later. But the rest was really more of just like a challenge of me to invent new ways to creep you out each time you visited. A lot of like I definitely either listened to audiobooks or read like some actual Lovecraft stuff, but then also just like scary video games were good inspiration. But yeah, that was the challenge. How do I creep them out in a new way each time?
Hey, you definitely succeeded on that one.
Good job.
It had a vibe. Like every time y'all were there, like it had a vibe. I guess we could talk about John maybe a little bit.
Yes.
So, I think y'all want a more concrete answer, but I mean, like, he is I mean, he's his stat block. He's his star spawn emissary, and I played him pretty true to that stat block. I think in my mind he kind of is sort of just like the guardian or like the gatekeeper for Cthulhu. And so like his real goal is to serve Cthulhu in whatever way he sees best. And I think, you know, trying to inspire Arthok to help wake Cthulhu kind of ended up being the goal. But that's kind of it. I mean, he's a monster. He was never a person. He was never like a real guy that got turned into a monster. He was always a monster. Because I think at one point y'all wondered if maybe he used to be somebody else. No, he's just a creepy dude.
Why is he so dubiously named? Is it because he doesn't know how to like disguise?
Well, in reading his stat block, he can take on like any form.
Okay, so he just...
and so like they're not like his natural form isn't to look humanoid. It's just to be this like weird monster with like this creepy kind of multiple voices at the same time situation. So I knew the first time you met him, he would have to be a source of help to get you off the island. But I also wanted him to be super creepy and kind of allude to him not being a real person or there being something wrong with him. And so that's why whenever you asked him for his name, like he doesn't really have a name, so he would just give you a different name each time and kind of like almost say it like a question, you know? And like maybe he's looking like different people that were on Arthok's crew or different people that died on the island. Maybe he's not. Who knows? He's just very unsettling.
So what was the whole like him whispering something to Arthok and then Arthok freaking out?
He told Arthok, so like Arthok kept his surviving crew in the village and then went off to go like try to find help or find supplies to help them and stuff. While Arthok was away, those like body snatcher plants
that was all
killed his crew. And so John told him. John like was like, hey, by the way, your whole crew's dead. I hope you know that.
That's crazy.
And Arthok, I mean, honestly, that was probably the straw that broke the camel's back, because like the only thing keeping Arthok going was like, I have to like help these last people. Like this is all that's left of my life, is like these people stuck with me and I'm their captain and they rely on me to get them through. And while I was away, they all died. And so he like lost it. And so he like burned down the building that the body snatcher plants were in, but that's not enough to kill them. You have to like salt the ground that they're in or something. So it wasn't enough, but yeah.
Well, okay, so then my question is as well, is the body snatcher plant, was that a conspirator in the whole Cthulhu thing, or was that just a happy accident that just so happened to work in favor of, I guess, getting Arthok to join the dark side, I guess. You know what I mean? Because it kind of feels...
I mean, the whole island is horrible. And so I don't think John ever... I think John probably... If John were a good being, he could have interfered and, like, stopped the body snatcher plants. But that's not his goal. He wants to just, like, watch people fall into madness and then serve Cthulhu. So John knew all of that was going on, but he was also the whole time just trying to egg Arthok on and just be like, oh, but all this power you can get, like, this is your ticket off the island. Like, you need Cthulhu. He can help you with that. Like, I know you've got this other mission to save your crew, but that's not going to get you anywhere. This is what you need. And it's like, and now you don't even have your crew left. So really, like, what are you waiting for at this point? but put much more creepily.
Oh, totally.
Do we want to just like straight up talk about Arthok?
Oh yeah.
Sure.
So
sorry, question.
No, go ahead.
At what point last campaign did you decide? Was it like pretty early? Was it like mid campaign? Because I know you said when we asked for help that you were like,
I'm trying to decide if it was before I had him show up again. Like I'm trying to decide if I had decided before he even showed up to you guys in person or not.
That's so crazy.
like, just here's a little cameo of your next villain. Shoop.
It was definitely well before the final fight of the last campaign. Like, it was definitely well before that, because I was shocked when y'all called him.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't fully remember exactly when it was. But yeah. I mean, I settled on him being the main villain. And so y'all asking him to help you out at the end of campaign 1 was super surprising, but it ended up working out for the best because it kind of gave him more of a reason to be bitter and spiteful, you know?
Yes.
He helped save the world, but he still lost everything that he felt made him great and powerful. And then an added layer to this that y'all started to piece together is that he wasn't always some crazy evil guy. He was definitely in denial about a couple of things, but that didn't drive him mad. It was like the island that did, you know? He lost his ship. He lost most of his crew in a horrific crash. He was trapped on a nightmarish island, lost what was left of his crew while he had been working to protect and provide for them. The island and John were constantly messing with his mind, and by the time he got back to civilization, like, he was probably already too far gone, and also everybody had already moved on and like forgotten, or it didn't matter anymore. Like, nobody was looking for him either. So all of that kind of drove him mad and made him the villain that we came to know in this campaign. And I thought that was really interesting, getting to kind of dive into his like descent into madness. He's definitely chaotic evil, like the epitome of chaotic evil. And he was always meant to start out as the guy that was basically playing with his food, if that makes sense. Like, he was so nice to y'all, and he played that like kind of grandpa kind of character at the start, and it was really just him like toying with y'all, just kind of probably because he was bored and thought it would be fun and interesting. Because, again, he's crazy. Like, he's crazy and chaotic. So it was just sort of like, on a whim, I'll play up this. And then when it stopped serving him, he switched on a dime and was a different person. And I do think he enjoyed the feeling of pretending to be on a crew and stuff. I think there was something about that he probably did enjoy. But that was probably about as deep as that went. And yeah, he was the other big gamble character, like very much and I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for you meddling kids kind of situation.
And your little pancake too.
Yeah, and your little pancake too. I thought getting you guys to travel with him and trust him would have been the hardest part. But I really didn't account for y'all's randomness in this whole campaign.
Yeah.
Y'all, like, time and time again stumbled upon crazy stuff. Like, constantly. But it was really interesting. So, like, obviously, if he had stayed hidden, the campaign would have unfolded differently, and we've already talked about that a little bit, and he would have slowly, like, I know he for sure would have killed Vice, but he would have slowly started killing off the rest of your crew as well. And he would have, like, you know, taken more people out at the different towns you stopped at. And we talked a little bit about, like, the truths he would have revealed already. But yeah, him getting revealed was good, though, because it really, I don't know, I feel like it kind of brought a fresh air to the campaign. It kind of flipped everything in a good way and kind of, like, brought some sort of extra energy and craziness that I felt like maybe it needed at the time.
I agree, because the whole stuff with the island at that time was still so. It was before we understood any of it, and it was still this like enigma, and we were kind of still like, was it a dream? We were all there, but you know,
Right.
like still. And now with, you know, Darren being like, take your shirt off, it was like this was. It's so funny. It was
what a wild thing to just say to somebody. Hey, take your shirt
Take me out
off.
to dinner first. Like, no, but
I'm just saying, if somebody said that to me at work, I would be a little distraught.
HR.
Yeah, like we
Right?
get HR involved.
Be right back.
That's so
You
crazy.
hired me. This is this is harassment.
What?
But it made it actually gave us a threat that was like pretty at first very like immediate and like and then when it wasn't immediate, it was kind of just like, I don't know, slightly looming over our head a little bit, because it's like, all right, at some point we got to deal with them, but
For
how,
sure.
you know? So
I think it ended up just really working out perfectly. And like I talked about this a while back, but like I was also dealing with a lot of burnout kind of around that time. And so like being forced to like have to problem solve my way out of that situation was really helpful for me. But it was like the most stressful thing. Like when that happened, it was definitely like another one of those like emergency meetings. Like I was like, Sarah, I need to talk through things. Like this crazy thing has just happened, and like we got to figure out what's gonna, because like if we don't find a way to sideline him, Cthulhu will be released and the campaign will end, and that's not fun for anybody involved. So it's like we're like, because we weren't even like a year into the campaign yet.
No.
Like it was so early. It was so early. But yeah, we bounced off some ideas and figured out, you know, what needed to happen. I think it worked out. I definitely like, I've talked a little bit about like what I could have done. Like, of course, in hindsight, you think about all the different things you could have done to like get out of being discovered, and I've talked about that a little bit. Arthok, somebody mentioned maybe in the last session about Arthok getting out of the bottle, like how he was able to do that. He had a few methods for getting out of the bottle. There were a few tactics that I had tucked away. For one, he's very strong. So theoretically, breaking the bottle or the cork could have been something that he did. Also could have just killed himself to go to wherever the cape was.
Yeah.
And I thought about that. I mean, he would have thought that the cape was on the island, and he would have been surprised for it not to be.
Jesus Christ.
And y'all would have been surprised for him to show up.
Naked.
He also, so he is part warlock, and his sword is his packed weapon.
Okay. Yeah.
So he could have, you know, used that to some effect. He has some spell casting ability. He has like a thunder wave spell that maybe could have cracked the bottle. He also has access to Arcane Gate as a spell, so that was also an option. So he has multiple routes to take. Who's to say which one, but he broke out.
Is he like warlock fighter?
So, in campaign 1, he was a barbarian, straight up.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Yes, he actually, he raged when he attacked Lilith so that he could get advantage on the roll. And, yeah. So he's barbarian base with, and then like at the island would have gotten the warlock stuff as he created that pact with Cthulhu. In a lot of ways, his stat block was inspired by the like vampire stat block, because that's like a really, really strong character, but also has some of the kind of charismatic prowess that like a warlock would have. There was like a lot of similarities there. And then of course had a bit of like a lich flavor thrown on top of that as well. So he's definitely an amalgamation of a bunch of different stuff. Sure. A truly homebrewed monster, but base stats would be some combination of probably, I mean, it's hard to say, but I use the vampire stat block a lot, like Strahd's stat block, honestly, a lot, for some inspiration, and then looked at some of the abilities of like liches and warlocks and barbarians to add flavor to it. But yeah. Any other questions for good old Artie?
Not a question, but I was nosy and went back in my notes. We found that out in session 20. Out of 93.
It was
session 20.
Long
That's
time ago.
Crazy.
It's a long time ago. It was your first
really
visit back to the island.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow.
Yep.
Like it was a long, you had just met Allie, and then he had left, and then you went to the island again, and then at the end of that, Grimace was killed and Arthok was found out.
It was not that long ago in my brain. But it definitely was that long ago.
He was sidelined for like legit 2 years. Like it's a long time. A long time. We can talk a little bit about like Zephyr and maybe the Astral Sea. If we want to.
Ooh.
I forgot how much I liked Zephyr.
Yeah. Zephyr's disappearance and where he actually was one of the first plot lines I got figured out for the campaign.
Sure.
And I've said this before, but I decided his fate when we were at that cabin for our first D&D trip. And that's where Benji said his bucket list item was the Astral Dreadnought. So I was like, how do I do an Astral Dreadnought? And then y'all had already, I think, started shipping Escher and Zephyr, maybe. And so I was like, well, if they got together, but I want the next campaign to be like 50 years later, and Zephyr's not immortal, so he would age 50 years, and that's not fun. And then I was reading up on the Astral Sea, and I'm like, oh, time doesn't pass there. I could stick him there, and then he won't age, and then I can just pop him out, and he'll still be like a normal NPC in the next campaign. Of course, he didn't show up until the very, very end, but that's kind of where that started. And that ended up working out really well, because then Caroline gave me like her backstory ideas for Orlana, and it just sort of worked perfectly with like the Genasi thing. It's like, oh, we can play into this. Like, Genasi have been disappearing, and like that's part of why Escher's acting the way he is about Zephyr, and blah 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 blah. And so sticking him in the astral plane just sort of like, it just worked out. In terms of the Astral Sea, there is a chapter in a campaign book called Vecna, Eve of Ruin. And there's a chapter where it takes the players to the Astral Sea and they explore a shipwreck. And I basically took that chapter. I changed out almost all of the monsters and all the extra little like fun bits, but a lot of the base of that was pulled from that. Like there being a safe room with the wards and stuff, that's baked into that chapter, but I changed out the monsters and put in our own lore and stuff into it. But it ended up being a fun way to get a taste of Spelljammer, which is like the treasure planet of D&D. It's D&D sci-fi. So that ended up being a nice way to kind of get a bit of that in there. What else? Also, sidelining Zephyr was a great way to help Escher's character grow.
Oh, yeah.
Like, because of course they would have to saddle Escher with taking care of him, because Escher's the only one that's not going to age.
Yeah.
And would be able to, like, watch over him without, worry about that. So that's kind of, that helped in some ways. It made Escher mature as a character a little bit more. Any other questions about Zephyr or the Astral Sea?
I don't think so. No.
I have questions about him looking into immortality, but I feel like that's going to come up later.
Same. I'm like, this is...
He's dating a vampire. I don't know.
I know,
Vampires are
but...
immortal and Zephyr's not.
I know, but we're jaded now.
So you say that, but also we were like, Escher took care of you, and he went, are you sure?
Well, because the Escher, if you go back and listen to Campaign 1, Escher's a totally different character.
Oh, yeah.
Escher lied. If you could, it's the epilogue. It's the epilogue of Campaign 1, and y'all invite Escher to the wedding. Escher lies to Zephyr and tells Zephyr that people are in danger and he needs backup just so Zephyr will show up to be his +1 to the wedding.
Oh.
Yeah, and he's like, I can never come to these things alone. Like, it's... And then they spend the whole wedding with Zephyr trying to teleport or dimension door away and Escher counterspelling it. That's Escher is a very different character in this campaign. And it's easy to forget how silly he used to be. Escher used to be like kind of more like a Drillis, and then Escher kind of like gained more humanity over
matured.
Yeah, the more time he spent with humans and away from the bad guys, the more human he became.
That's true.
Okay, all the rest of this is like dropped ideas or like just sort of lingering things that I thought of. So one of them was like, could the Mythic Six have shown up earlier? Because y'all brought them up fairly early about like, oh, where are they? Can they come deal with this horrible threat? I mean, probably not a surprise to y'all, but it was always my intention, for this campaign to be centered around your new characters, not your previous ones. So it was hard for me to find a reasonable way for them to not be involved in such a big threat. So I just had to get them off the plane. I had to get them away. And honestly, y'all's decision in campaign 1 to like take away the veil, it helped give me a more logical reason for them to like be away. They've got a lot to do. So originally I kind of didn't want them to show up at all, but kind of as things unfolded, and you guys, like, they did come up fairly often. I figured it would be nice to give them a little cameo at the end.
I know.
Which was sweet.
That was awesome.
All the tears.
Yeah.
All the tears. Dropped ideas that didn't happen. Let's talk about some of those, and then we'll probably be done. So, way early on, I knew I wanted to do a nautical campaign, but I wasn't sure who the big bad was going to be. So originally, the big bad, the placeholder was Umberlee, and she would have been the big bad, not Cthulhu. And the big reason why I decided to change that was because the previous campaign, the big bad was Tiamat, and I didn't want another like, no offense to Tiamat or Umberlee, but mid-tier, like, female goddess is the main villain, you know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
It felt too repetitive to me. So Cthulhu felt like a bigger threat, but also alien enough to not be similar to Tiamat.
Agreed.
And like Tiamat was like a conscious, actively plotting villain. We didn't necessarily see that as much. Like there were ways in which we could have seen that, but we didn't really see that much. But she was like awake and, you know, had people doing her bidding. And Cthulhu was like dormant throughout the adventure, and so that was also different as well. He was this looming threat that we like can't quite even really like imagine what that would look like, you know. But yeah, honestly, if y'all had scryed on Ysera a little earlier in the campaign, you could have caught her talking to Tiamat, but it never came up. But nobody was like having chats with Cthulhu, you know. No, he's asleep. So that was like a big thing that changed. I'm glad we landed on Cthulhu. That was fun. Did my music cut out? Maybe. I'm gonna start it back. Yes, there we go. Originally I was gonna have you sail around the entirety of Kadath. But as you played out the campaign, I kind of realized that you just wouldn't, like, as the main threat became more, like, understood, there wasn't really a reason to keep charting the island. You know, it's like, we don't really care about that anymore. So that was, like, good for getting you to start the adventure, and then it's something you would drop later. And so that sort of changed as things got more dire. So yeah, I kind of stopped worrying about that and quickly had Hangman's Alley have that like cut through that got added in so that y'all could kind of cut to the end there, which I think was fine. When I was committed to that idea of y'all sailing around the entire island, I considered you visiting a dwarven city, and those dwarves would have introduced you to new constructs like submarines that you could have used.
Whoa.
And I did end up hinting at that with Bernardi's submersible ship.
Oh yeah.
But so it wasn't like totally scrapped. Like I think in terms of like world lore that still exists, but y'all just didn't go there, which is fine. Totally fine. Before the Arthok reveal, Fortune's Favored would have served as your main rivals in your quest for notoriety. And you would have had rematches with them regularly as you both took similar routes to chart the shores. They were also originally intended to all survive to the end of the story. But I pivoted away from this as it became clear that I needed to sideline Arthok.
Whoops.
Yeah, it's fine. There is... Bigler's has played... I don't know if you finished it, but you've at least played some of it. There's an adventure called to the Netherdeep, or Call of the Netherdeep.
Call of the Netherdeep.
And in that campaign, there's like a rival group that like you keep running into, and that idea sort of inspired Fortune's Favored, but it just didn't end up panning out that way, which is fine, honestly. I think they were present enough.
Agreed.
And then I guess last, the thing that I guess surprised me the most is from the moment you guys took the cape, you had the means of ending Arthok's immortality. And at some point you realized that, and I half expected y'all to do something about it when you realized that, because you had the phylactery in your hands. But you didn't, which was really interesting. And then I spent the rest of the campaign worrying that you would never do anything about it ever again. So that was like the biggest surprise for me. But I think I understand why y'all didn't tamper with it. It was sort of a security blanket.
Yes.
Definitely.
Like literally.
Yeah.
Because it kept y'all alive. And that helped in a couple of situations, honestly.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know. Any other... You got anything else for me?
What are the layers of the curse? Like, what are the...
what are the like steps?
Oh, yeah, that was a big one.
Ah, yes. Hang on. Let me pull up the ye old campaign document.
Did you talk about the tarot readings for...
Oh, shit. I didn't look them up. I'll look them up. Hang on. We'll do that. We'll do that in a second. Okay, let me find my curse stuff. I think this is in Appendix B, magic items. I'm too organized. Coin of the Ancient. This coin of greenish silver metal initially appears to be an ordinary electrum piece. However, it is engraved with strange runes and feels slightly warm to the touch. Coins cursed. So, from 1 to 99 souls being the number that is slain, you don't really gain any, cool benefits from it or anything like that. The biggest thing is, like, on the 7th day away from the ocean, the owner incurs 1 point of exhaustion. We dropped this because y'all just started carrying, like, bottles of ocean water with you.
Yes,
So you kind of, like,
this...
rules lawyered your own curse, a la Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean. Added to that, so, like, again, with the ocean water, it didn't matter. But if y'all hadn't figured that out, the owner would be unable to eat normal food and would be overcome with nausea if they tried. And this nausea could only be placated by consuming sand or eating seashells. Which is weird, but fun. Just like, why?
That's so much.
From 100 to 249 souls, you gain the ability to create or destroy water. 7th day away from the ocean, you incur 2 points of exhaustion. Didn't matter. 250 to 749, you gain water walk twice a day. And then you get 3 points of exhaustion. And this was as far as y'all got.
Yes.
From 750 to 999, you gain water breathing. And water is no longer considered difficult terrain. But you incur 4 points of exhaustion. For 1,000 souls, you can cast Control Water. But also, at 1,000 souls, Cthulhu's path to the material plane will be clear, and he will arrive in no less than 7 days. So.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so silly. You get a 4th level spell.
I know, right? I know. Well, here's the thing. Like, I didn't want it to be too crazy because y'all caught on to it. Like,
yeah.
And I knew that you would catch on to it. So it just didn't really... It didn't matter so much. Like, I just knew we'd never get there.
Yeah.
That's fair.
What else? Oh, we're gonna look up the tarot readings. Dang it. So, our tarot readings for our NPCs were Arthok and Escher, and Arthok's was the Hierophant, which I think is really fitting for him because he just dived into Cthulhu cult stuff. And then Escher's was the Three of Swords. And I interpret the Three of Swords as, like, that was his future card. I think the thing that he wouldn't let go of was, like he wouldn't go and get Zephyr. Like, he wouldn't go and do that. He was stuck with, like, he's left me and I'm just gonna sit in this. And he's just gonna be this thing I have to take care of, and he's not considerate, and I'm too afraid to face that. But then you have to let it go. And so then he finally, like, I need your help. I need you to help bring it back. And that was, like, facing it. But I feel like they were both really appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. Yeah.
I'll have to go back and listen to Arthox again. I was too worried about trying to figure out who it was at the start that I wasn't paying attention enough at the beginning. But, yeah, I don't know. The tarot stuff is weird. It was
Crazy.
just trippy.
Crazy.
Super trippy. But, I don't know. Any lingering questions?
I can't think of any.
Me either.
Good, I think.
Me either. It was a good campaign.
It was.
Very fun.
Yeah.
Good
For us.
campaign. Yeah. I can't believe it's over.
I know.
I know.
It hasn't. It hasn't.
I don't think it's
settled
gonna sink
yet.
in until
Yeah.
we start making new characters.
Truly.
Yeah.
Like, for real, for real.
Truly. Truly. But
Well, Joe and I need to go to bed.
yes.
But
Thank you
thanks,
for,
Amanda.
sticking around for the wrap up.
Yeah.
If you think of any questions later, shoot me a text or call me or something.
Love y'all.
But yeah. Till
Love
next time. Till the next campaign.
For the next campaign.
Crazy.
Crazy. So crazy.